They needed that. That locker room had to feel good about something. They got to do that at least for a short period of time. I know they've turned the page, Courtney, but they needed a performance like that against a very beatable team on Sunday, didn't they?
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of people are going to say, well, how can you gauge where the progress can carry over because it was against a Dallas Cowboys defense that's just not very good, especially on the back end. But I do think there's a lot there that they feel confident about, and just being able to get it down, to show proof of concept, to show the offense works when it's schemed this way, when plays are called specific ways, when you can wear down a defense by running the ball 11 times. It may not have been the most effective run game throughout, but like in moments where it mattered, they came through, and that's a heck of a lot better than being 0-3 right now with the bye 2 weeks away, and to finally get one over on a team that was very beatable from the very jump.
I guess Caleb Williams, by the way, was just named NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So you talked about, the offense looking the way it's supposed to look. We know it works when things are done properly, when it's blocked right, when Caleb's going through the reads right. And even Ben Johnson talked about that a little bit, that he's starting to see the maturation of understanding where he's got to go through the progression. What do you see from Caleb these last couple of weeks that are positive takeaways, you think?
For starters, I mean, the no sack stat I thought was huge.
Yes.
Maybe the underrated part of the Cowboys game. And yes, they didn't get a lot of pressure up front because it's an Eberflus defense that doesn't have dudes in it right now because Micah Parsons doesn't play for them anymore. So when you are only trying to get pressure with your 4-down linemen, in that scheme, we've seen it not work here in Chicago. Dallas is now getting introduced to why that defense doesn't work and why it's antiquated. So there's that, but I also think that it's an important stat that isn't just based on, like, okay, they played a defense that didn't pressure him that much. Like, he stood in the pocket and he delivered 2 touchdowns under duress. The one to Cole Kmet, obviously the flea flicker one to do it flat-footed. When, there's a guy about to knock him down, I thought was very impressive. The one to Cole Kmet, DJ Moore. Like, there's a lot here to like about the performance you saw in the growth of Caleb. And I think Declan Doyle said it last Thursday that, from weeks 1 to 2, there were signs that the growth was happening, and then you finally get the big jump. And that's important because you want to know that the coaching is working. You want to know that what he's doing is what he's being seen to do, that he can play within structure. Like, I think more than any stat, more than anything we saw against the Cowboys, was he played within the structure of the offense. He wasn't living that much. He didn't have to, but I think of just like when you talk about some of the habits he's had to break since Ben Johnson became his head coach, different footwork, the rhythm and the timing of where his throws need to be. And on top of that, seeing that he can hang in the pocket and deliver throws and do it within what Ben's asking him to do, that's a big step in the right direction for Caleb.
Agreed, yeah. If we are looking at some advanced metrics, according to ESPN and their win rate metric, their run block win rate metric, the Bears rank, I think this would be surprising to a lot of people, second in the NFL behind the Buffalo Bills. PFF also gives the Bears a grade in the top half of the league in run blocking. But this offense seemingly has struggled to really be dynamic running the football. And Jurko and I have been talking about this today. I don't think it's like all on DeAndre Swift or it's a huge Swift problem. I actually give Swift credit for, I think, the way he's played. He's been great in pass pro. He's been dependable as a pass catcher out of the backfield. But what is it with some of these advanced metrics that would tell you the line is doing its job? Why can't Monangai and maybe Swift in this run game get going here? Or will it at some point soon, Courtney?
The first 3 weeks, it felt like they just don't have a rhythm or a pulse on what the run game can be, and they're trying to figure that out. Had there been times where DeAndre Swift hasn't seen the hole and hasn't been able to bounce outside? Sure. Yeah. But when the offensive line has been run blocking pretty well, but the volume is as low as it is outside of, the 11 straight runs that they had in that 19-play drive, you just wonder, like, what's it going to take? Because the personnel is what it is. Like, they're not making any changes there. That's the group of rushers that they have. That's who they have this year. It's DeAndre Swift, it's Kyle Monangai, and I guess until, further notice, that's what they're going to run with. It doesn't seem like Roschon Johnson's going to be a part of this run game.
Sure doesn't.
Travis Homer's on injured reserve. it is what it is with the personnel. It's not going to look like Detroit, but I don't think it has to in order for it to be effective, because some of the metrics don't seem to line up with what the run game looks like. And it doesn't pass the eye test right now at being very efficient. Like, are there more runs? Was DeAndre Swift marginally better against the Cowboys than he was against the Lions? Sure.
Yeah.
But they still just didn't really stick with it much in the first half. Like, it worked advantage-wise because they were up 10 points. They didn't have to use the clock to try to get more possessions in the third quarter. It allowed them, because of the score of the game, to then just double down, run the ball, and catch a defense on their heels. Now, if they were trailing, I don't think that's what that drive looks like. But that's something that's got to spring loose here. They started off real slow on the ground last year. I think through the first 4 games, Swift had 1.8 yards per carry. That was what it was averaging. Mm-hmm. Different scheme here now, but it just feels like that's the one element that's really missing from this offense that could show you the complete picture of how Ben Johnson wants to call a game.
Could I get an update on some of the injured guys out there? Edwards, Kyler Gordon, Cortland's, what's our guy named? Colston Loveland. I always call him Cortland Sutton for some crazy reason. Yeah. I always do it accidentally, but I do it anyway.
That's great.
But Colston Loveland, can I get an update on all the fellas?
Yeah, so Loveland has the hip injury, and it sounds like it's not, we'll monitor it today to see how much he's able to practice, but Ben Johnson made it seem like he got away with, nothing serious was the phrase that he used. Adam Schefter reported earlier in the week that he's expected to have a chance to play.
Yeah.
But they got out of that game relatively unscathed, and it didn't look like it was going to be that case when Darnell Wright goes down in the second quarter, and they're messing with his elbow on his right side of his arm, on his right arm. I thought that was going to be a much more significant injury, and he came back and he finished out the game. Like, that one was one that I thought they were going to, he looked like he was in a lot of pain when I was watching him, and I actually thought it was his hand at first, but that one's not that big of an issue. And then with TJ Edwards and Kyler Gordon, what we were told last week is they're week to week. So now there's the question comes up, all right, it's been a week of them, another week of them not playing, another week of Gordon not playing, a week of TJ Edwards resting that hamstring. Do they return to practice this week? Because if Kyler Gordon can get back to practice and get back to playing, do they move him to outside corner? I think that's an option. That's something I think they'd have to work through because they played him there a little bit in the spring. He rotated a couple different spots, and I know that Dennis Allen thinks he's a versatile chess piece in the back end of your defense. So is that the best option when you look at Nashawn Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, and who you have there? Nick McLeod playing a nickel right now over Josh Blackwell. So I think that's something that's going to be on the table when he comes back. It's just, when will that be? This is an important week to see if he's able to practice. Or if they're going to boot him out until after the bye and give him 2 more weeks.
Stevenson, did he heed the message from the week prior?
I think so. I mean, he said that his preparation was different this past week, that he felt more intentional about it. And how could you not? I mean, giving up 58.3 passer rating when passes are coming into your coverage, you got to do something different. And to me, that's a sign of maturity from a third-year player who knows he has a short leash here because of everything that happened last year, but also, you're a second-round pick. You've got to perform. And, some of that's timing-wise, but I think, the timing of him making these plays. He had a great game, but I think there's also, when he talked about the want to last week in practice, when we asked, hey, Ben said there's not championship-caliber practice habits, what's missing? And he talked about effort and the want to. To me, him describing what happened on that forced fumble recovery all-in-one motion was an example of that. Because he's like, the way he was carrying the ball security, I could tell he didn't want it. So he makes the play, like a brilliant play, body control on the sideline, keep your feet in bounds after you strip the ball, to then give the offense a jolt. And then he had the pass breakup in the red zone, so they turn him away for the field goal. He almost had an interception on second down going the other direction towards the north end zone before halftime. I think he needed, of anybody else on this team, of anyone on this team, I think he needed that game more than anyone, more than Caleb, honestly. And I know that's probably going to be a bit of an eyebrow raiser, but Tyreek had been, a sore spot on this defense for the first 2 games, knowing that Jalen Johnson was injured and not going to be able to play. I think he needed that to prove not only can he still do it, not only does he still have it, but he can flush some really bad weeks, some really bad plays that happened in that Detroit game and move forward from it.
Yeah. Courtney Cronin for another minute. We're talking Bears. It's Carmen and Jurko on your home for Bears football, ESPN 1000 and the ESPN Chicago app. All right, I try my best to stay away from body language police stuff, but sometimes I can't help myself. And this has been a recurring theme the last year or so with DJ Moore, who's a very good player, obviously. I think everybody acknowledges that. Is he happy here? Is he happy with the situation? Is he still a good teammate? Like, what is it if we see one thing on TV or if you're in the stadium and you're watching him? I mean, and that is one thing, but what's the other thing that maybe we don't see behind the scenes as far as DJ wanting to be here, totally committed, and being a good teammate?
I think he gets a lot of that just based on what his stat line sometimes reflects and how the cameras catch him on, in moments where it looks like he might not be finishing a play. I know we saw that a couple times in Detroit, but I thought the interaction between him and Caleb Williams after the touchdown, when they're kind of joking around, Caleb said he tried to grab him by the head and what did they call it? Do the thing on a noogie or something?
Noogie,
oh, yeah.
Noogie.
I did it all for the noogie.
Yeah. Yes, that's nookie actually, Jurko.
Oh, my fault. My fault.
Different. But
that's Limp Bizkit.
I thought that was a good sign for the two of them to get DJ going, to get him his first touchdown of the year, to show you haven't been written out of the game plan by any stretch, and that you're going to get yours. And that's as much on Caleb Williams distributing the ball as it is on Ben Johnson to give DJ more opportunities and not just have Caleb lock in on Roma Dunze. He gets criticized for it because his face just happens to be kind of RBF. I have it too. And it's not something that I think he is intentionally doing. But as far as is he happy here, I don't think he's happy with his production because he's had so many 1,000-yard seasons, and last year breaking that streak, he knows he's better than that. He had just gotten paid. I don't think that that's something that a competitor is going to be okay with. And, with the body language stuff, we talked to him about it in the spring, and he said, yeah, there were instances where I guess I was doing it, and until, I think just because it was a story last year and because of what we heard in the off season, that Ben was working on body language, not only with Caleb Williams, but everybody else, that it's going to be a story until it's not. And until it's not part is until we start seeing DJ Moore consistently, targeted. And he was. Don't get me wrong, he was targeted a lot in the early games, just didn't really amount to much. But, I thought the Sunday game and what he did was a positive sign that, he's okay. It's going to be okay for DJ Moore in this offense.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. Take care.